Welcome to the stage, Aaron Levie and our moderator, Alex Wilhelm.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. Okay.
Did you hear a word she said?
I know I got made fun of at some point, but I'm not sure what it was. I couldn't hear.
I couldn't hear either.
Okay, good.
All right. Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, so I just did a little check. Box's shares are down 0.57% today.
Oh, thank you.
What the hell?
Maybe you should hang out with me more often. You can just keep me updated on the stock price.
Maybe like your own personal stock ticker, if you will.
You could.
The one-man CNBC.
Any other shares? How are other shares doing?
Dropbox is doing great.
Oh, good. Okay. That's,
Actually,
it's harder to trade those shares, though, so we don't know.
Bit. Although you can. So before we actually start, I want to ask you a question.
We just got into this. Okay.
Well, yeah, there's not a lot of time. In SF at Disrupt last year, you were on the drone panel?
Yes.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Like, why were you on the drone panel? I never got that.
We were actually in a quiet period at the time, so we could only talk about things that were the most unrelated things to our business. So
how did you get on stage for that? I mean, I feel like that's kind of a random.
You guys got to check your own selection process.
Right, I'll
on
blame
that one.
Susan after we're done.
No, well, we actually have a partnership with a company called Skycatch, which they do industrial drones, and it turns out that the reason that you would use drones in an industrial context is you want to capture lots of image data.
Aaron, it was a joke. You can let it go.
Okay, I can let it go.
I was just kidding.
Okay, well, I wanted to make sure that we were actually everybody knew our drone strategy.
Good. Well, you have to have one. It's like it's a cloud now.
It is.
All right. So I was just at Box Dev, your developer confab in SF.
Yes.
And you announced something that I don't fully understand, which is Box Developer Edition.
But you paid attention to the keynote.
Well, you were talking, so no.
Okay, got it.
But if I understand it properly, it's a way for developers to spin up their own Box instance inside of their application.
Yes. Well, you nailed it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Why?
Okay. So we built a platform that helps enterprises store, manage, access, secure their most critical information. Sometimes it's documents, sometimes it's medical data, sometimes it's marketing collateral, whatever it is. We store it and we secure that information. And we've sold to 45,000 customers and enterprises around the world. But what we realized was in the process, we've built a lot of technology from workflow software to metadata to content management software to encryption technology. And we said, well, instead of just opening that up for our customers, why don't we actually let developers add that into their application completely behind the scenes?
Was there a customer demand for this product, or did you build it hoping they're going to use it? As in, were people calling you out and requesting for this?
Yeah, it's a little bit field of dreams, and a little bit we saw that there was there was some demand. So
speaking of field of dreams,
yes.
If you built it and you did they come?
Many came. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, phrasing.
Yes. Okay. But
it's currently in closed beta.
Yes.
But are the early adoption numbers up to your expectations?
I mean, it's extremely closed beta, so we control.
How to define that? Like, how many people are we talking about?
No, like we're going to open it up to hundreds of partners and customers.
So right now it's less than 100 partners and customers.
No, we're opening up to hundreds of customers and partners, but
but right now in the closed beta, how many people are using it?
Oh man, dozens.
Okay.
So, but it's the kind of thing that we're building it to have hundreds of thousands, but it's going to be a sort of slow build to make sure that we get the right kind of use cases identified. So, but just so it's super clear. So if you're building a healthcare software a product to help digitize the healthcare industry, you have to store a lot of HIPAA compliant. You have to store a lot of data in a HIPAA compliant way. Box
People who don't know what the hell is HIPAA compliance?
It's a privacy requirement around how healthcare information and personally identifiable information is stored. So every time you read that Anthem got hacked and a lot of data was leaked, that's basically a breach of HIPAA compliance.
Okay, so how long until the product is actually into open beta, and then after open beta, how long until it's actually in the market?
We'll probably make it generally available later this year, so I'd say Q4.
Okay,
Thank
4.
You. Yeah, 4.
I was hoping for Q3.
I know you were, based on what you said.
No, that's
Okay.
words. That's how they work.
Yeah.
This has been going well. All right, do you cede any control over your user experience by kind of white labeling out Box in this way?
Well, the way that we think about it is different. So this is meant to solve a bunch of the problems that our core product can't solve. So we can solve secure collaboration and file sharing and managing content for an enterprise. But again, if you're building some digital workflow in healthcare or in retail or in financial services, you're probably building for a whole bunch of workflows that are super, super deep and super specific to one industry. There's a company called Hightower, as an example. They build a management solution, a software solution for the commercial real estate industry. That's something we're never going to be able to do. They are going to go way deeper than we will ever be able to go.
You're pursuing a vertical-based strategy at Box, going after individual verticals, entertainment, healthcare, and so forth. So is this showing that that strategy wasn't that astute and you have to change it, or are you just following the same path in a different way?
Oh, no, this is an accelerant to that strategy. So we're going to go into retailers and media companies and healthcare providers and sell regular Box, which will help them share files and collaborate. But then there's a lot of other solutions that they're going to be digitized. There's a lot of other workflows that they're going to be digitizing now for the modern enterprise that we're not going to power because it has nothing to do with file sharing or collaboration. It has to do with some business process. And we still want to actually be a back-end tool for that business process, but we need to do that in a much more seamless way to actually make the workflow work.
Do you think that eventually Developer Edition will generate more revenue than Box proper?
I totally forget what I'm allowed to say from an SEC standpoint. Let's just say it will be very big for us.
Don't worry about regulations.
Okay, this is not live. Good.
Yeah, not live at all. No one's here.
So it will be a very big product line for us, and we'll sell it to customers. We're going to open up for developers, just like Amazon Web Services, and we think that'll. So if you're a developer on this platform, it means that you don't have to go rebuild all of the stuff that we've had to build for 10 years. So maybe it's managing documents in a HIPAA-compliant way. Maybe it's medical image viewing. Maybe it's being able to serve up video in a media application. All of those things our platform can handle.
Sure.
And then you just build whatever you want on top of that.
But to be clear, you think this will lead to an acceleration of Box's user growth and revenue?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's a perfect segue. Thank you.
Okay.
So your revenue was up 74% in your last fiscal year.
Yes.
And according to your fiscal Q1 earnings, you expect a 30% growth rate this year.
You're making it seem like we're like on Wall Street or something.
We're in New York.
Okay, fine, fair point.
This is very appropriate.
All right.
It's like 20 blocks away.
Okay.
Does that 30% growth rate for fiscal year meet your expectations?
Well, we gave guidance that we felt comfortable with sort of setting the right kind of expectations with the market. I would say that the way that we're investing in our growth, the way that the markets that we're going after, we are very, very focused on growing as fast as possible. And so we'll have to just see how we do relative to that number.
It's just that the decline from 74 to 30 feels like a pretty steep
Yeah,
descent.
I mean, it's mostly part of it is a scale issue. So we did $215 million in revenue last year. Yeah. We announced we'll do $285 million this year, at least in terms of setting the baseline expectation. But you can be assured that we're investing very aggressively to try and meet and exceed that.
I know. I've seen your losses.
Yes.
Sorry, that was horrible. Okay. So I've talked to a lot of people in your space, and I really want to know who right now is currently beating everyone else out at getting these large enterprise deals. I know that Dropbox is trying to get into your space. Microsoft is there. Google is there. When you go into these meetings trying to pitch Box to these large corporations, who's currently doing the best?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think so. Before Disrupt, I had 4 customer conversations representing 2 media companies, 1 financial services company, and then 1 other. And I would say the vast majority of the landscape right now still is actually undersaturated, where they haven't chosen a solution. So we're just, if you think about the technology adoption lifecycle of our product category, we're still only in the early majority, which is right at the point where you start to see escape velocity of the industry.
All right, let's do a sports metaphor.
Yes.
What inning are we in?
What inning?
That's baseball,
That's
right?
baseball. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So, don't people always like to say we're in the first inning?
I know, but that's bullshit. So what inning are we in?
Okay. I don't know. We're like, it's like, between the, where like, is there?
Stop? I don't know.
Where it's like the second inning.
Second inning.
Yes.
Okay. I think they're like.
But of like an 10-inning game.
Is it 10 or 9?
Yes.
All right. The Yankees fans are going to kill us.
There's going to be overtime in this game.
Okay. Speaking of that, on the Dropbox point specifically, when they're trying to make an enterprise push, and I'm hearing various things about it, and I'm curious if you can throw a little light and color onto how Dropbox is performing in the market.
Well, I think that Dropbox is very formidable in the sense that they have a very large-scale consumer population of users. Those users bring the product into the workplace. We have a lot of people that bring Box into the workplace. We have 35 million users, but we don't have the same kind of consumer scale. So,
what fraction do you have?
Of what?
Consumer scale.
Well, we don't think about our consumer business. We just have 35 million users that bring the product into the workplace, and then we go sell enterprises. So it's a very different model than what Dropbox has. So Dropbox is going to be incredibly competitive in small and medium businesses. I think there'll be some industries where maybe the regulatory risks or the security requirements are not high enough, and so.
Wow, that was a subtweet.
Yes, well, that's what we do. So, in some situations where again the security controls aren't as advanced, then they'll actually be quite competitive. But so will Google Drive, and so will Microsoft. And so those will be areas where we won't have an unfair share of the customers. But what we go after is we're going after the Fortune 500 and certainly beyond. And we're in 50% of the Fortune 500, 45,000 customers.
So going back,
yes,
50% of them pay you.
Yes,
you're in
98%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Who's holding out?
Well, we're still working on a lot of the bigger banks. So Wall Street is, in particular, an area that has been slower to adopt best-of-breed kind of modern technology. That's something that I'm sure many of us in this room are working on right now. Is how do we actually get much more modernization in the banking industry, in healthcare, in even the government sector is a massive holdout right now. Certainly, they wouldn't be in the Fortune 500, but they have a lot of legacy technology that needs to be updated.
Okay. What companies or what type of companies are you interested in buying?
Got it. So this is really. Did you just speak to like a financial analyst before this conversation?
Yeah, it's a lot of this.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming we'll talk about earnings per share at some point.
Yeah, you lost what, $1.65 a share last quarter? Yeah.
So we've made 3 acquisitions this year. We are very dedicated to being the best-in-class service for what you can do with content when it's in the cloud. So we bought a company that does 3D rendering in the cloud. So if you're GE and you move your jet engine designs across a global supply chain, we want to help you do that in a much more enriched way in the cloud. We acquired 2 companies in the security space. So we need to be the best place for where you can secure your data and have all the controls and security around that. So we acquired 2 companies there. So things that relate to enhancing, securing, helping you collaborate around content, that's what we're very interested in. And there's lots of cool startups that build value around that proposition.
Is Box Notes still a priority for the company?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I was trying to get at there. I mean,
okay.
Are you looking to buy companies that are doing productivity stuff like Box Notes and to build them onto the Box platform, or are you still going to not focus on taking on Office in that capacity?
We don't want to take on Office.
Why
we
not?
think that the way that we all define Office, which is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, maybe Access or whatever, we don't think that the way that you compete with Office is by rebuilding that in the cloud. We think that it's going to be a whole new set of experiences that better leverage mobility, better leverage the fact that the workplace is changing. We don't think that you attack that head on with a parity product. And actually, this is what Google signed up for with Google Apps, and it takes them, I don't know what they're at now, but they have probably hundreds of engineers that are trying to build Office-compatible functionality, and that's a really, really hard problem. And the fact that Microsoft is now very competitive, they're very relevant, going after and trying to replace Microsoft where they're actually relevant is not a winning battle.
So you're going to go to where they're not relevant. So OneDrive is not relevant.
Well, we don't think that OneDrive solves the problem that we solve, so that's not necessarily a direct competitor. But things like Box Notes, which is all about, we think there's new ways of working that don't actually relate to the sort of asynchronous ways of creating a document, editing it, and then publishing it. We think there are new ways that you're going to want to work in real time, and that's what Box Notes is for. But that's where I think so many great companies are emerging today to go solve those problems. We would much rather be a content layer in many of those applications as opposed to just doing it ourselves.
Okay. Let's talk about encryption.
Great.
Good answer. You recently released a product called Enterprise Key Management.
Yes.
EKM, great acronym, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
No one's ever going to forget that one.
Nope.
And the entire idea was you give the enterprise a functional key that you don't have, so your data is kind of doubly encrypted. Is that
Doubly
fair?
encrypted, exactly.
And just same question as before, was this driven by market demand, or did you build this more greenfield?
Well, it was greenfield in that nobody had built it the way that we built it, but
define that.
So what we did was, who's going after financial services right now as a startup?
That dude right there.
Oh wow. Okay, like
6 people.
So just
okay.
the
yeah.
2 people that hang out together.
We're
Okay, got
friends.
it. So, who's going after healthcare? Okay. Wait, am I like the only enterprise software person here? What the
What do
fuck's
you guys
happening?
do?
What is okay? Is anybody going after regulated industries?
Same 4 people.
Okay,
What is
I
this?
like 7 people. Okay, fine. All right. So, is everybody just doing like food delivery? What's the plan? So, okay. Okay, got it. All right.
All right.
So fine. The food delivery guys won't know what I'm talking about. But if you're trying to sell to Bank of America or JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, or you're trying to sell to Aetna or major hospitals, or you're trying to sell to major life sciences companies, they are very sensitive to how the IT environment is changing, where things are leaving their data center and moving to other people's data centers, the cloud.
Oh.
And they have legal issues with that. They have risk and compliance issues, and then they have security issues. And all of these things tend to actually get conflated. So it's hard to actually separate what is actually a legal concern from a security concern. They all kind of get merged together as saying, I'm afraid of the cloud versus I want to just do things on premises. So what we said was actually, one of the biggest issues stopping people from moving to the cloud was this idea of control. Legal control, the control of security, a bunch of things that are wrapped up into this idea of control. And the thing that ultimately customers are trying to control is their data. And the way that you control your data is by having access to the keys that control that data. And so what we found was if you actually help customers control the encryption key, then they actually end up legally controlling the data.
And it's out of your hands in a way.
And it's out of our hands.
Actually undo it. So if I'm like the government, I come to you, you can just throw your hands up and say, sorry.
We have to tell you to go to the customer to then get access to that encryption key. So it changes the actual legal authority for things like subpoena requests, but it also just makes legal teams and risk teams much more comfortable with moving information to the cloud.
Does the government like that you built this?
Actually, the government has been extremely interested as a customer. So the government wouldn't be a customer of Box without this solution. So it turns out that the government is recognizing that they can't be in a world where they're requiring this kind of unfettered access to systems. And so that's a reality that the government is recognizing. So whether it's us helping our customers be more encrypted or helping the government stay better encrypted, they're generally coming on board to this idea.
So what's your take on the current debate right now in tech about, in politics, that encryption should have a front door built in for government access? Because I feel like Box EKM, the product you're talking about, is directly opposed to that concept. You're giving control away as opposed to allowing easier access for other people. So how does it fit into that policy debate?
Well, we are very much on the side of more encryption is better, and giving customers control of that encryption and having as little control yourself and then thus no ability for backdoors is incredibly important. And we think that's going to be very important whether you're building devices or creating software. So I would say that we very much fall in the camp of Tim Cook and many others that have been on the side of driving for encryption.
Okay, but so you're kind of on the anti-NSA camp, if you will.
In this debate, yes. I think in general, I think it's good to have national security, but I think in the debate of encryption and backdoors, very much on the side of no backdoors and more encryption.
Because I've heard from different cloud providers that they have a hard time selling into Europe because the Europeans are fairly worried that the NSA could demand access to their files because they're based in America.
Yes.
Companies are, the providers are. So, does this essentially open up Europe for you in a bigger way?
It will. We certainly see that Box EKM and so this encryption technology will open up new markets for us. But I would say in general, probably none of us as cloud companies or companies trying to drive software innovation are going to be successful at a global scale if the U.S. government doesn't have much more clarity, much more alignment, and much more, I think, standardization in terms of how they treat internet surveillance with other major countries that are our allies.
What I'm trying to ask is the NSA fucking the American cloud business?
I think like
there's no SEC regulations on this one. You can just answer.
Like, did a couple Europeans clap or something?
That's actually the TechCrunch TV.
Okay, I got it. Okay. Wait, really?
Yeah.
You're European? Okay, makes sense. So
she's British.
Okay, so basically what I'd say is they are certainly creating friction where it would be great to not have friction. So it would be great if every customer in the world, whether you're a consumer or a business, could use any software no matter where it came from. And the NSA and a lot of our policies in America introduce friction into that process. So if you are a regulated bank in Germany, it's not very easy for you to go to a cloud service. That's different from a UK-based media company or retailer. So it depends on the level of regulations that you face and how regulated the market is that you're in. But in general, it's creating more friction, and things like our encryption key technology are meant to unlock that friction.
Well, like a 125-word answer to say yes.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Wait, what?
What? Okay.
Okay, you just said it so fast that I don't know what I just
sorry.
need to.
I said there's 125 words to say yes, essentially.
Right.
Okay, as long as we're on the same page.
Yes.
Now,
probably more words than that.
Yeah, you talk fast too. All right, so Box is a developer platform. Have you seen increasing uptake of Box by developers over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, our API calls are up maybe 3x in the past year, so we're doing something like 6 billion or so calls a month, which is small by like web scale, but for the enterprise market, we think is pretty healthy. But in general, we're certainly doing way more as a platform company. I think in 2 or 3 years from now, we will be known more as a platform company than just for our application.
And what does that look like from a product perspective? I mean, does this box kind of recede into the background a little bit and becomes less of an app that I pull up on my phone and more of just part of the technology that I use?
In terms of the, I think in terms of the whole pie graph, yes. I think we don't think that our enterprise customers will use us directly any less, but we think that they'll be using us more in total. So you might be interacting with your bank or your hospital or your or maybe your educational publisher, and Box will be on the background powering that interaction for content-related activities.
Sure.
But you might also then be using Box directly, and you might not know that those other providers are using the service.
But you're very content to be in the back end, in the background, and not be directly customer facing.
We think that our strategy is going to be a mix of both, and we think it's going to be allowing developers to leverage everything that we've done to power their application, but then also we're going to be very, very focused on kind of very core content-related use cases that we can solve directly. Okay.
Moving apart from Box just for a second. We've seen a lot of very large rounds going into private SaaS companies over the last 6-8 months.
Yep.
I mean, Zenefits is raising $300 to $500 million at a $4 billion valuation, which is an insane amount of money. Do you think in the private sector of SaaS companies, we're seeing a valuation bubble right now?
I mean, this is the classic thing where everybody has to agree on the definition of bubble. So,
what's yours?
Well, I don't. Usually the way that bubble is applied is not to this phenomenon. So what you have is a phenomenon right now where you have a scarcity issue between, and that drives a supply and demand dynamic that drives up prices. So you can have really, really great companies that now can have maybe a valuation that might be like in the pure conservative sense, something that really they're only worth in 1 or 2 years from now, but they are worth that now because there's a limited numbers of shares, and there's a large amount of investors, and there's a small pool of companies that are similarly good. So what that drives is a dynamic where it's a very entrepreneur-friendly environment where you can raise valuations that are maybe higher than you'd otherwise get today, but aren't necessarily disconnected from the ultimate value that you're going to be able to build. And that's the key distinction.
Okay,
so to have a valuation bubble, we have to assume that you're not going to ever get liquidity at a higher price than that number.
Right.
And I would say most of the companies that you see raising these large valuations, there's still huge opportunity for them to be way bigger.
All right, here's what I ask.
Yes.
Zenefits had 3.7% of your last year's revenue, and it's currently raising a $4 billion valuation, which is roughly twice what Box is worth. I just don't get that. It just confuses me, because you've been growing very quickly for a long time, and yet you're being valued at less than a company with almost no revenue.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't strike me as too confusing. They're a private company where there's not a lot of access to their stock. There are trillions of dollars in investment dollars that are trying to find new homes of higher growth opportunities. So that was going to eventually funnel to a small set of companies that there's a limited number of ways that you can buy their shares, where the opportunity is incredibly massive. And so for something like Zenefits, they have a huge opportunity ahead of them, and the private market is very attractive right now, which is funneling capital into these very limited set of companies.
Wait, are you a Zenefits investor?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's my bad.
Okay, that's fine. But I would say the same thing for Uber, for Pinterest, for Airbnb, where I'm not an investor, where the same dynamic is at play. You have a complete reordering of the economy right now that is going to be much more in favor of technology-oriented companies that are now going after arbitrarily large markets. And in every category, there's going to be a few major winners, and that if you can get access to a few major winners, then there's a huge upside, and that's what you're seeing as an investor dynamic right now.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, so last question. In 5 years,
yes,
is Box a public company, a private independent company, or do you work for Microsoft?
They're not all mutually exclusive, but I would say that we would like to absolutely be a public company just because that's the path that we're on, and we would like to be much larger. And we certainly didn't go public to then go private. So the idea would definitely be to stay public, or else the past year would have been a real waste of time. So that's the focus.
And are you CEO in 5 years?
Yes. Well, I mean, if I can, I mean, I'm chairman of the board. I have a good amount of control. So the plan is yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.